Wednesday, March the 13th. Spring is springing upon us here. All the trees are starting to bud. Bradford pears, dogwoods in different places. But 80-something degrees today. Things are warming up quite a bit. Water, temperature, or the lake level, just a little over 912, which is about 3 foot below winter pool. And the water temperature depends where you're at on the lake. It's anywhere from 50 degrees up to the mid-50s in the main lake. But if you find some off-colored water in some of the creeks, or even up in the river arms like James River, Kings River, and Long Creek later, especially late in the day, you find some real high 50-degree water, but it's cooling back down a little bit at night. But, some days have been really good for me, and some days I've really struggled. I had one day, Sunday, where I was up in the James River fishing channel banks with crankbaits, and we catch them on crankbaits, a small jig, and a Ned rig. Right on the main river, any place the channel swung into the bank where there was bigger rock. It was really good. I went back up there Tuesday during a guide trip, and we really struggled to try to catch the same fish. So it seems like a lot of times I'm having trouble catching fish in the same area, but catching them on the same patterns. A lot of the crankbaits I've been using have been like a rock crawler, reds and crawdad patterns. Also throwing some flat-sided baits like if the water's a little bit shallower, like a Spro Little John, and even a frit-sided bait. I like to use a lot of reds, browns, and crawdad colors. The water's got some stain to it. I like something that's a little louder. Clearer water, I'll use a more natural hues, like the Phantom Watermelon. But even the last few days, like today, the wind blew like the dickens, and I was down at the dam area. But I had trouble getting a quality bite on the crankbait. I could catch small fish on it, and it's kind of been the same way with my jerkbait. I've had a few good bites on it, but I got to throw the jerkbait a ton to get a few bites, even to get small bites. I think there's still a lot of them fish. Even though the water temperature is warming up and it's 80-something degrees, there's still a lot of fish out there deep. And as far as consistency, my main thing has been out there deep still. Just kind of chasing around them schools of shad with a Demiki rig. Some of the shad are in the creek, some are on the main lake, but the shad are coming up higher in the water column. A lot of them only be 10, 15 foot from the surface, but might be in 50, 70, 80 foot of water. I think a lot of them fish are starting to move, and we should be able to start catching them off of flat gravel banks here, setting in about 25, 30 feet. I haven't thrown a shaky head very much, or a jig, with the exception of Sunday when I got on them channel banks. When the wind wasn't blowing, it seemed like we had to go to a Ned rig and a little jig. As long as we had a little wind, we'd catch them on crankbait. But a lot of the Demiki fish, and it's no different than what we've done for years. It's real similar to like the old 4-inch grub that we used to throw this time of year. Throwing it over treetops, over gravel, like a little paddle tail 2.8 Kitech. Basically all the Demiki is just pretty much a straight tail. This is a missiles bait here, and I usually throw them on a 3/16 to a 3/8 head, depending on the depth I'm fishing and how much wind I've got. Now, it used to be we just covered a lot of water with it. Now with the live scope, you kind of idle around, you see some bait, then you start picking out your schools of bait and fishing through them and underneath them with the little swim bait or the Demiki rig. There's also, I think a fairly good Alabama rig bite. I've got a tournament Saturday that doesn't allow the A-rig, so I've been practicing without it. And like I said, my most consistent thing and my better fish have been coming on a Demiki rig. But you can chase them big schools of shad around forever and a lot of times not get bit. I mean, I can contest to that firsthand. But it seems like when you find the fish underneath the bait, they're pretty aggressive. You know, you catch 2 or 3, then the fish seem to leave. And a lot of times on the live scope, you can actually see the fish coming into the shad and feeding on them. When you see that, it's kind of game on. You're going to get a couple bites. But other than that, you know, it's a lot of time spending on the trolling motor, looking for the right combination of fish and bait underneath them. I've been fishing a lot of main lake, bluff ends with the jerk bait, especially with the wind that we've had. And I'm sure somebody's catching them that way. I just haven't found them yet, you know, or the right bluff ends or the right trees. I think as the water warms up, they're going to start moving up into that right before they move into the flats to spawn. But like I say, a lot of the fish are coming up higher in the water column, and they're going to start coming to the bank. You know, there's some on the bank now. You just got to cover a lot of water with the crankbaits. You know, I hear there's some glide bait fish being caught. Probably mag drafts will work. You know, a lot of different baits will work. You kind of just got to pick what you got the most confidence in. You know, this time of year, I like to cover a lot of water, so I'm using reaction baits, something I can crank pretty fast and, you know, cover the water, and not so much crank fast. Even with the crankbait, I'm really having to, once I get my bait down, I'm really having to slow my retrieve up. You know, you want to feel it bouncing off the bottom or off the rocks. And usually whenever I'm bumping something, I'll pause it just for a second and start to retrieve. Sometimes you don't even feel the fish bite. It all of a sudden feels like you picked up a leaf. Fish just load up on it. The good thing about the Mickey and the swim bait bite is they're usually biting it pretty good. I mean, they'll, you know, your rod tip goes down pretty good. But those fish seem to be, you know, really scattered. Just look a little higher in the water column. I've been throwing them over some main lake secondary points with, you know, submerged timber where them fish are starting to stage to come in. But I think the bite's going to get, you know, for some people it's been really good. The weights have been really stout on all the tournaments. And the quality of the fish, I mean, all the fish look really healthy. Some big smallmouth being caught. I caught a mean mouth, which is a cross between a spot and a smallmouth today. That was 4 pounds on a Demiki rig. And I know a lot of guys are catching smallmouth on shaky heads and Ned rigs. So, you know, a lot of good fish starting to bite, and it's going to do nothing but get better. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.